Hello, everybody. It's Friday Fire. It's quickly becoming my favorite show out there. And all of a sudden, nothing seems to be working. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Do I have sound? Yes, testing. Yeah, I do. Well, I have sound. If I'm on my own, that's fine. I'm used to talking to myself. Anyway, let's get into Friday Fire. And it may not appear that things are as cool as the title would suggest, but trust me, there's an underpinning behind the scenes you have to be aware of. The crypto market cap is at $3.62 trillion. Volume just over 100 billion. And Bitcoin was literally a few hours ago 105.4, and now it's 101.6. We'll talk about that in a minute. ETH dominance is back out of the 10x handle. It's up to 11%. Fear and greed is 76, still good. And let's get into the story. And of course, I'm just a guy on the internet, not financial advice, as always. And shout out to Patreon, the producers of the show that make it possible every day. Trevidmund says, well, only after watching your videos for like a whole freaking year, I finally joined Patreon. Slaps his palm and head in disbelief. Sending great vibes in Long Beach. Hello, Team SoCal. Thank you so much for being here. Hope all is good down there with the fires and stuff. Hope that's all passed. Let's get into the story. Fear and greed has been hovering around the 76 mark now for a long time. We are back in extreme greed. Yesterday was greed. Last week, greed. And last month, greed. People are bullish. People are greedy. That's a good sign. And the stock market, too, has flipped to neutral. They were in extreme fear for the whole month of January. It's just gone up to neutral, which is good. So people are feeling very bullish about the stock market as well. It's good when these two are feeling kind of greedy. But remember, if things get extreme greed for a long period of time, then it's time to take some off the table. That's just how it works. Let's talk about the black hole first. Blackrock and Fidelity stormed back yesterday. Big buys. It's kind of interesting to watch these things. I've been watching them now for 266 days, calculating the numbers, tabulating them, identifying trends. And we do have a trend, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, if you look at all the red that's happened since day 210, that's all BlackRock. They have been stacking like it's going out of fashion, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, BlackRock represents some of the richest people in the world, and they are the biggest money runner in the world. What BlackRock do, you should think about doing as well. Just saying. Follow the people with money. Follow the people that know how to make money. Don't follow others. Anyway, let's look at this chart. Excuse me, this chart too. Purple line is what to look for. And I don't know why my thingy Discord is pinging. That's weird. I should be turned off. Sorry about that. Boom. Kill it. So it won't disturb us. But this chart is so important. That purple keeps going up and up and up. And if you look at the amount of snacking, again, huge amounts in a very, very short window of time. All of a sudden, I've completely lost my charts. Yeah. Anyway, the point is now we are back up to $600 million a day of Bitcoin being purchased. If you calculate the average over time, it comes in ebbs and flows, but we are nearly at the north of $450 million a day mark, which is extremely bullish. But even more interesting is the amount of Bitcoin that they are purchasing. Now, when they kicked all this off, the price was like, under 40K. And now the dollar doesn't go as far with the price being north of 100K. But despite all that, a couple of crazy statistics I have to share with you. Yesterday, the ETFs purchased 5,616 Bitcoin. Boom. And over the last 12 days, they purchased 41,000 Bitcoin. Okay, remember, only 450 are issued a day. These puppies bought 41,000 in 12 days and 50,000 Bitcoin since the 3rd of January, 2025. We now have the 31st of January. And remember, this is just counting trading days only. So although you can see very clearly the dollar flow is higher than ever before, but the amount of size of the Bitcoin bars is not as high as before because Bitcoin is more expensive right now. Your weakening ice cube isn't going as far in Bitcoin terms. And remember this, I always talk about this too, that, after such a large bag of Bitcoin was purchased, the market begins to feel a bit of a supply crunch, and then the price surges, often a day or two later. This is the pattern. This has always been the way. And to prove that, I've got somebody backing me up. This wild theory. This is from Nick at Econometrics. He says Bitcoin thrives when ETF inflows stretch over long periods of time, even when interrupted by 1 or 2 days of outflows. Don't worry about those little hiccups. But the key is to avoid extended periods of outflows. And the pattern over the last couple of weeks suggests we are back in a very positive dynamic. Nick, I struggle with colors, but red I would change to green and blue maybe change to red. Again, because red is a positive, but these are the inflows. You see we had some really strong days as well. This is represented not only here, but here and here, the amount being snacked on. Of course, we had one negative day, selling about 4,000 Bitcoin, but that was easily surpassed by the other 11 very positive days, far outweighing. So the question is, what happens next? And the answer is Bitcoin has to break out. But we have to also remember it's painful for the ETFs to spend a lot of money on Bitcoin. They want to buy it in the low 100s, not at 105.5 like it was this morning. So somehow they've got to push the price down. Okay, here we are. This is the liquidity hunt happening live as we speak. Literally, I popped this chart in a minute ago. And I bet you the liquidity hunt ends at 101,600-ish, 101,650, because that's where the last bubble is of liquidity that needs to be hunted. And then we go up from there, ladies and gentlemen. Say it here live on TV. This is the bottom, or very, very close to it. And then we go north, back up to 105K this weekend. And that's just how it works. That's the market manipulation. Shout out to Marty Party as well in DCA. He had a great session on that on Monday. Now, let's get into gold, Bitcoin, government corruption. This is from Radar. A guy called Senator Bob Menendez, who fought against El Salvador adopting Bitcoin, was just sentenced to 11 years in prison for taking bribes in gold and cash. These are your government senators. Corruption is rife throughout governments, not just in the US, but throughout the world, everybody. And Nayib Bukele had the last laugh here. He said, "This guy said we use Bitcoin for money laundering and corruption." Ha, well done, Nayib. And remember, when people hate something so much, they have an agenda, and that agenda obviously is not positive. We've seen a lot of that over the last couple of days if you're on X as well. People that are paid by big letter, those 3 big letter organizations, they pay their senators to get their bills passed so they can sling crap on us. I nearly said a bad word. Nearly slipped. Anyway, back to good news. And, well, depends exactly if you think this is good news or bad news, but it does show that the new SEC is taking action, and it's taking action fast, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news, the SEC approves the Security and Exchange Commission because Gary Gensler is gone since the 20th of January, and they're already making steps. They approved a combined Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF, and this is cool. A combo fund from Bitwise, and this approval was expedited, signaling a very favorable regulatory regime now under the SEC for crypto. We are just seeing the beginning. Thank you, Chaotic Coder, for being out there. And the asset allocation, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be like 85% Bitcoin, 15% ETH, reflecting the relative market sizes at the time of the filing. It could go 87-13. It could go 90-10. I don't know. We'll track that, but it'll be interesting to see as well. But that is the first ever combo ETF to hit the planet, and more are coming. A lot more are coming because crypto is real in the United States, and the rest of the countries will follow as well. Shout out to El Salvador being first, because you ain't first, you're last. But now we have 19 Bitcoin states in America. This is moving so fast, it's impossible to track. Thank goodness for BitcoinStatesOfAmerica.com, who now tracks it for us, so we don't have to make these little maps anymore. And the yellow represents 16 states where a Bitcoin bill has been introduced. Let me try to get these right. Let's start with Massachusetts, where Elizabeth Warren has an anti-crypto army. Yep. But they're thinking about Bitcoin. Interesting. New Hampshire, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. New York is there. No. New York is not there. I'm mixing up Massachusetts with New Hampshire. My bad. And then, Yeah, you can read that. I'm just going to screw up the states right now because I have a hard time reading those little letters. The orange is where Bitcoin bill is currently under vote. Utah and Arizona. Shout out to those two great states. And then the blue is North Carolina. But it's so they can hold Bitcoin. I'm not sure of the exact details of the legislation, but that's where we are. But the point is, this all started with one state. Now it's 19. Soon it'll be 50. And then the dominoes will continue to fall around the planet. This is game theory in action. Every day, more adoption. The supply of Bitcoin is only going down, not going up, contrary to popular belief, because every day we hear reports of people still losing their Bitcoin. Anyway, it's going to be fun. Speaking of allocations, like Bitwise, Vitalik is a little bit different to Bitwise being 85-15. He is 90% ETH, 10% Bitcoin. Actually, he said less than 10% Bitcoin, but I thought that was interesting as well. He should have been in Bitcoin over the last couple of years. Just saying. No offense to Vitalik. Anyway, another Bitcoin-related news. This is also tied in. MicroStrategy they've nearly tripled their subscription for the new STRK shares, the new issues. And that'll enable them to buy nearly 6,000 Bitcoin. Yet another 6,000 Bitcoin will be purchased, taken out of circulation. 6,000 whole coiners will be denied in the coming days. Now, I'm not sure exactly if they are in their quiet period before earnings. Probably, if they are, I'm not sure if they can ATM or if they can convert this into Bitcoin, but it'll happen real soon either way. And what's crazy about this is the new stock, which is called STRK. I do not own it. It's not available yet. You can apply to get some or whatever, but it'll be about $80 a share. Remember, this is not MicroStrategy. This does not dilute MicroStrategy. Very important. But they'll be issuing about 7.3 million shares, and they'll be paying a 10% dividend yield. 10%, which is pretty bad compared to, bad as in good, compared to what you get from a treasury bond and other things like that. So no wonder it 3x'd oversubbed. And what's crazy about this too is now I always talked of, for years, I call what MicroStrategy does as financial jujitsu, but it's about to go into a whole new realm, ladies and gentlemen. Let me try to break it down slowly. Shout out to JVS, James Van Straten, and Saylor was in a rush before Trump even won the U.S. election. And that was the 21-21 plan that they launched on October 30th, but didn't put into effect till the 11th of November. This is the first day they started buying. But now they're 29% already through their preferred stock offering at $2 billion. That is the $600 million approximately here. And they are 74% the way through the ATM offering, $21 billion. And only 14% through the convertible debt, $21 billion. I believe they'll be issuing a lot of convertible debt in 2025. And maybe some of it at a negative coupon, which means people will pay to own this debt, not get paid to give money. That's how desperate things are in the land of fiat, which I'll talk more about towards the end of the video. A little more on melting ice cubes. But this is the insane demand, and it's far more accretive as well. You've all seen my charts of the sats per share and how it goes up every single time MicroStrategy buys. But this was upsized by 3%, and this is the largest upsizing in preferred stock history. Everybody, another record for MicroStrategy. They are reinventing capital markets. Okay? When I first got my job at a bank, it was in capital markets in the year 1989, and I was always obsessed with capital markets, and here we are. But here, you can see the vast amounts of capital available for Saylor to tap into that Bitcoin could be accelerated by a number of years because of this new tool. And the demand for yield-like products in this asset class is going to be through the roof. Everybody likes to get that little bit of a, whether you're an insurance company or a pension fund, it's nice to get the little 8%, 10% kicker. And this will also be far more accretive on Bitcoin on a per-share basis than convertible bonds or ATMing. And this is coming in the month of Feb, which is starting tomorrow. Craziness. And I'll remind people again, for years, again, I've been making MicroStrategy videos. My third ever video was a MicroStrategy video. in 2020 and nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. But just as a reminder, I had to share this chart again because I keep getting questions. 1 in 500 people understand Bitcoin. That's about 0.2% of the population. At least 0.2% of the population own it, which means they understand it. And then 1 in 50 Bitcoiners actually understand MicroStrategy. That's 2% of Bitcoin owners own MicroStrategy stock, as well as insurance companies and stuff, because they just need exposure. So if you imagine that, the crazy stat is the percentage of the population of this planet Earth that understands MicroStrategy is about 0.004% of the population. So, fun times. Anyway, game-changing trade of the decade. Let's get into some crypto news. Stablecoins, absolutely insane. Shout out to Helios and Mert and Sanjay who got me this chart right before I went live. This is Solana stablecoin supply between October 2024 and January 2025. Okay, it has surged 72% in the last 6 days. It is absolutely insane how USDC is exploding on Solana. Again, I said a week ago, at this rate, they could catch Tether in 6 to 9 months. Well, at this rate, it'll be a lot faster than that, but I don't know if that's sustainable. But the point is, stablecoins are beginning to explode in crypto. As the market cap of crypto explodes, as money printing explodes, it will rise all boats. Who's ready for that? And other news too. Solana smokes Ethereum over 30-day in fees for the first time ever in the history of the planet. Solana did 119.3 million in fees over the last 30 days. Shout out to Solana Floor. And Ethereum only did 107. And I have no idea, in full disclosure, what Photon is, but they did 80 million. So what is Photon? I have no idea. Maybe one of these fly-by-night things. And Tron is the stablecoin layer 1, and they're number 4. Well done to Tron. Let's get into Jupiter fees, because we are talking about fees. Another huge week for fees for Jupiter Exchange. And remember, they're turning half of these fees into buying the Jupiter stock back, and it's crazy. And they also have some capacity across 3 volts for JLP at the same time too. But there's more on Solana. Other huge news, and we've been talking about tokenization of everything on the planet for years and years and years, but now it's actually happening. And it started first on Ethereum. Shout out to Ethereum. But now there's a firm called @Securitize, and they are expanding their tokenized real-world assets to Solana. Again, they're using a thing called Wormhole to do this. And what's also crazy about this news as well is the former SEC and CFTC chief economist praised Solana for their blockchain capabilities as a fast, scalable, cheap, and efficient chain. And institutions are increasingly adopting blockchain, particularly on Solana. And this is the big news. The ETH maxis got very excited when Biddle from BlackRock started to deploy on Ethereum. But guess what? Now, RWA and Wormhole are bringing BlackRock to Solana as well. And this is a leading platform for tokenizing real-world assets and has integrated Wormhole as its primary interoperability platform. I read about this. I shared it on Patreon earlier this week, but I didn't get into it enough to verify it was actually real and not just some fake marketing stuff on Twitter. But yeah, it appears it is probably very real at this stage. And this will allow tokenized funds, including those from major asset managers like BlackRock, to move seamlessly across different blockchain networks, enhancing the flexibility and security of these assets. My predictions in 2023, everything would become cross-chain, and that's what's happening right now. Now, this integration went live apparently on the 28th of January, and it's just coming out. And what's also crazy is they're looking to partner up with Wormhole to launch $1.3 billion credit fund on Solana as well. So it's all happening very fast. Watch this space carefully. Wormhole, I've been watching this thing for the longest time. Kind of like I was watching Zeus for the longest time. I had to wait until it was actually really real before I could jump in. And it did launch, was very strong. All-time high is about $1.86. Now it's about 20 cents, 24 cents. And it's climbing. And this is the ATR model. And it shows you that we are just under level 1. So I do believe if there is an alt season and if real world assets, tokenization of everything, the adoption by TradFi into crypto for exactly this tokenization purpose, this one could do very well. So we'll see. And we've seen so many cases before of Solana being the black hole, everything flowing to it. This should be no exception, I believe. Could be wrong. We'll see. And speaking of AI and bots, we'll talk a bit about AI right now because it is the most profound revolution to hit us ever in the history of the world. But CERN, this is from Farzad, his slide, and CERN will be discussing this with Herbert Ong today as well. And it was a great show we had after the earnings and before the earnings for Tesla with CERN and Herbert and Jeff Lutz and Alexander Mertz and all these brilliant people. Brian, Futuraza, fantastic show. But the question is, where will we end up with bots? And the market's getting very excited. Check as well my Patreon post this morning on JP Morgan. But Elon wants 10,000 bots by 2025, but he's realistic. Farzad thinks he'll probably get 2,000, which is a lot of bots. And 2026, if he wants 50,000, he might get 10,000. 2027, 500,000, he might get 25,000. So Farzad's ramp is very, very slow, but it does accelerate as manufacturing at scale accelerates too. Either way, as Elon said, 2026 will be lit for Tesla, and 2027 will be absolutely face melting. Even if there are only 25,000 bots, it's going to be radical and it's going to change very fast. But it's not just bots as well. Tesla also have a $10 billion energy juggernaut with 30% margins that's going to grow. Again, it's going to double probably this year too, as Shanghai is now live. Again, this is massive. Everybody needs energy storage. The grids need more power to run AI, and to have a continuous power source, they need energy storage. And they will pay for it hand over fist. It's about getting as many mega packs as you possibly can, as quick as you can, kind of like H100s because they go hand in hand. So be prepared for both of these things. And it's no coincidence Elon is at the center of all these S-curves all at the same time. It is a plan. It is not an accident. And speaking of AI and everything else, Softbank did say they'd be part of that project. Oh, I forget the name. Stargate or something for AI. But all of a sudden, Softbank is entering miners, starting with CIFR. And they are giving them a $50 million private placement. Is that to get access to energy to run AI instead of Bitcoin mining? I'm not sure. I think so. But we'll see. We'll find out more soon. And speaking of AI, it's not dead after all. After DeepSeek kicked us in the teeth last weekend, guess what? OpenAI's valuation doubled in just 16 weeks. Craziness. It's now valued over $300 billion, a third of $1 trillion. And I always ask myself, and they're issuing, or I think they're raising another $40 billion at this valuation. But I'm wondering, does that dilute Microsoft's 50% share? I need to dig into that. It's occurred to me right now. And AI, because it's not dead, because they found out that DeepSeek did, in fact, have probably a whole bunch more H100s than they let on that they had. This is another piece of cool AI news as well. Shout out to Sanjay once again. There is a thing called a Hyperbolic plugin for Eliza OS. In full disclosure, I have not tested it yet, but it provides computing power through a network of computers instead of one big centralized system. So be able to pull from, I don't know, Azure and AWS and a whole bunch of stuff for brain power as you need it. And why? Is because it can think for itself and it can access more power when it's required. Again, go to different places, access more compute, etc. And that'll bring about more accessibility, more affordability, more smarter AI agents, and, of course, a lot less reliability on one network. So either way, it's going to be very fun to see. Probably most importantly as well is the fact that if it is going to multiple places, there'll be less centralized control and mining of the data that's actually been searched too, which is good. Speaking of as well, ChatGPT 03, that's 02 first, is coming today, apparently. This is from OpenAI's Chief Global Affairs Officer, Chris Lahane. Hope I got that right. And it should be out today. So we'll see. Because apparently ChatGPT is falling a bit behind. But now with all the news over the last week, everybody's accelerating to try and catch up and stay ahead of the curve in this very fast-growing space. Speaking of a player that should be an AI player, but it's not really. They're still completely reliant on phones. And if you've watched this channel over the last 2 years, I became very bearish on Apple. got rid of my last Apple position, I think about 3 years ago, because I saw growth slowing. And I said, they're no longer innovating like they used to, and they're too dependent on the iPhone, etc. And this is pretty incredible. The Apple iPhone sales are down 1%, and that's the biggest revenue miss for Apple in over 2 years. And they're completely dependent, well, more than 50% dependent on the iPhone, and they're also being eaten alive by Chinese competitors. And by the way, Warren Buffett started exiting a position too about a year ago as well. So maybe a good decision there too. And shout out to Marty, who brought this to my attention as well. Upcoming auctions. You may hear the government saying this, they're doing quantitative tightening and they're not cutting rates and all that good stuff. But this is what you are not being told. The Treasury is printing money like mad. They'll be printing $250 billion over the next 3 days per this auction list here. Okay? 3 days, $250 billion, probably nothing. And Jerome Powell won't tell you until it's too late. So we got stablecoins minting like crazy. Got the Fed minting like crazy. You got Canada going into quantitative easing. You got the ECB cutting rates and also printing like mad too. It all paints a pretty scary picture if you're holding onto a bunch of ice cubes. Whoops, maybe my cash position's a bit too heavy right now. Anyhow, inflation not under control too from Kobasi here. PC inflation was 2.8%, in line with expectations of 2.8%, but it did rise, and that is the problem. And PC inflation is now at its highest level since May 2024, and therefore the Fed pivot has been paused. Inflation, of course, is a lot higher than this, but the point is it's going the wrong way. They were hoping for their magical unicorn 2%, which I said would never exist, and now money printing is happening, which will drive more inflation. They've lost the plot. While they cripple and destroy demand. You've heard me before. Anyway, over to Europe. Shout out to Holga. This is an interesting story. This is what I call melting ice cubes. The ECB has decided to lower its interest rate it pays on money that banks deposit with it to 2.75%. And that rate that you are getting paid on your money is taxed, by the way. Interest is taxed, so you get a lot less than that. And it is also lower than the current inflation rate in Germany, which means the real value of the money people saving in euros is going down. Why do we care? Well, inflation is when prices go up, which means your money can buy less stuff. Okay? And the interest rate you get in your bank isn't covering it. You all need to be in hard assets and disruption, preferably not fiat currencies. And shout out to our friends in Germany as well. You want a tamper-proof currency like Bitcoin. I mentioned that term yesterday and it upset a lot of people that thought I was some, I don't know, because it's related to somebody who said that. It's like, I don't care. I share what you need to know. And unfortunately, most of the people in Germany are very underrepresented in owning American stocks. So if you are in Germany and you are listening, open up a brokerage account. Start buying some Tesla. Okay? And hold it for 5 years. Not financial advice, of course. Here we go. And GDP. If things couldn't get worse, well, GDP is tanking. The U.S. economy fell to 2.3%, down from 3.1% in the previous quarter. So growth is not there. However, there is a lot of bullish sentiment because the new regime is going to cut spending, cut taxes, and hopefully that will unleash an era of growth over the next year. That's what the market thinks will happen. We could be wrong, but there will definitely be more productivity because of AI. That's why we talk about it too. And I'm trying to finish on a bright note because when I share some depressing macro news, I want to cheer people up with a meme of the day. So shout out to Mr. Song. This is the meme du jour. And Bitcoin is down 8% this week. And the guy with the coffee, I don't know his name, but he's hilarious. I'm not surprised. I warned you that it was a bubble back in 2013. Literally, people like this exist. Bitcoin was $50 in 2013. And yes, Bitcoin is volatile. So don't let people talk you out of a good trade. Remember that. Remember that. Thanks all for coming. Thank you to the mods in chat. Sean Donnelly, TND Tesla, K8. Who else am I missing? Moto89, good to see you, buddy. And hope I caught everybody. Big week, tiring week. For those of you on the West Coast, be careful. Heavy rains are coming in. Apparently one of those rivers from the sky is coming down. So bring your umbrella and try to stay off the roads. Don't aquaplane unless you're in a 4-wheel drive Tesla. Thank you all. Driving advice right there. See you tomorrow for the recap of the week. Good night, everybody.